is building buildings and then another sheikh getting upset because so-and-so built a taller building than him. He'll actually tear down his building and build up one taller than the second one, right? And this is also in our own culture. The New York, the Empire State Building was the tallest, and then the Chicago building one up them, and then the World Trade Center. And then you have now in Malaysia, interestingly enough, very proud. The Malaysians are very proud that they now have the tallest building in the world. And, somebody had it on the cover of a Muslim magazine, and they asked me what I thought. And I said, I think it's really interesting that the Muslims are proud of being part of fulfilling the signs of the end of time, right? Because it's seen as a very negative thing, not a positive thing. And then also, there's another way to look at this, of building tall buildings, like these kind of wretched people. And that is the idea of building lofty ideas and building ideological structures, because the Quran talks about the building of taqwa, bunyanu taqwa, right? The building of God consciousness and awareness. So the idea also of wretched people creating lofty ideologies that many people will follow and think that they're the truth and things like that. So it's just a very quick overview about it. And then also finally, I think the point of all of that is that time does come to an end, that the human condition does come to an end, and that's how Islam contextualizes history, is that there is an end that is imminent. Again, I think for the individual person, the imminence of the end of time is always related to their own personal death. But there is an idea also. And then there's another important, I think a very important idea within the Islamic tradition, and that is that each generation will be they will be fulfilling the idea of this dimensional Islam, of Iman, Islam, and Ihsan. They will not do it as well as the previous generation. That there is an idea that each generation is a watered down version. There are periods of renewal historically, and the Prophet Muhammad did say that there would be renewers every 100 years or so. There would be people that come and renew. But the idea that it's not the same. I mean, I think the Muslims do have an idea, traditional Muslims anyway, that it's not so much progress, but quite the opposite. And one of the things René Guénon pointed out about the rapid speed of progress, he said one of the things that we forget is increasing acceleration means going down, not up, right? That the idea of the modern world, and I think there's a lot of questioning now of the wisdom of the idea. Bacon introduced the idea of progress, because prior to that the Christians did not have that idea within their worldview of that we are progressing. They had quite a different idea. And I think ultimately from the Muslim worldview and also from other traditional worldviews, that the same ethical issues that Plato is positing through Socrates, what is justice? How do we lead a good life? What is a good life? These things we have not come any closer, right, to really, progressing in terms of our ethical nature, in terms of our spiritual nature. That although we have massive outward technology, able to do extraordinary things, bring the living back, bring the dead back to life, move mountains, quite literally. Despite that, we are still dealing with basic human tendencies such as greed, lust, envy, slothfulness. It's hard to get away from those. And in some ways, we're less aware of our own negative tendencies than perhaps peoples before us were, and more filled with our own sense of hubris and our own sense of power. Although certainly the 20th century is a century that has created a lot of disillusionment. We've killed 180 million people this century alone in wars between human beings. And it's interesting that they weren't religious wars. They were ideological wars, because one of the oftentimes critics of religion will point out, well, look how many people died in the name of religion. Well, look how many people died in the name of communism, right? I mean, we forget that we're dealing with a human species, that it's not, the religion is not the problem, man is the problem, right? And if there's a humanizing factor in the human condition, as far as I'm concerned, it has been religion. That religion is what has introduced into the human being concepts like making beauty, concepts like becoming conscientious, charity, right? Caritas, these things, the kairos, all of these things are coming out of religious traditions. And the Muslims always say in the end, God knows best. I'm going to open it up for some questions. If people want to go, believe me, you're most welcome to go. This is my last talk that I have with you, and I just would like to say my presentations, I adhere to the teaching of Islam, and I do believe in Islam, and I tend to take a more devotional approach than, say, some other academic approaches. That is I really try not to preach to people because I've never have ever liked being preached to in my life. So I really try to do that. But if it has come off as that, I would apologize to anybody. If I said anything in any way that offended people or their tradition or their own beliefs, that I also apologize for that. That was not my intention. If that was the result, then I would just ask that I would be excused for that graciously. And then I would also just like to say that this has really been a very good and enriching experience for me. It always is. And I've been appreciative of the fact Darul Islam has invited me back. But I would like to say this has been, for me, a very good group. And I'm not just, I didn't say that to the last groups. I really have enjoyed this group personally. I think you've all been just really just a good group. And you're all teachers, so a teacher likes nothing better than having good students, and so I've honored and grateful that that's been the case. So, having said all that, I'll just say, if anybody has any questions that I could answer or anything. Mm-hmm.
I had a question that it just came up in my mind. I guess about time, but it's not directly related to your lecture. I noticed that at the mosque there was a list of when the 5 prayer times were, and they changed every day.
Right.
I guess according to the likeness of the day and all that. Is there a place how would you find out what the prayer times are where you're geographically living? Like where I'm geographically living in Canyon Lake or Riverside County?
I think in the beginning of the Islam lecture I talked about how to find the prayer times. And they are based on the sun and the movement of the sun. They're easy to determine unless you live in an area in which the sun is clouded over, so you don't see it. And in that case, generally, the scholars have permitted the use of astronomical means of determining. So
when you have it done ahead of time, like you did in the
right,
mosque.
but we actually, personally, I don't follow that. That's put there for like cloudy days and things like that. I will look outside at the natural phenomena to determine my prayer times. That's what I do. There are many Muslims that depend on the prayer schedule. Traditionally, it's alien to these because there's an importance in being aware of cosmic phenomena.